Kal Kadosh Boker Or Shavua Tov. Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf Pebet Amud Aleph 82a1. We were just speaking about the entire concept that, according to him, what you're going to do is you're going to send it in the hand of a shaliach, because if the shaliach dies, he says Mevi veno kare. We asked why, because he says V'lakafta veveta. Remember that the same. You're only going to bring bikurim and read the psukim if you were the same one that did everything from A to B, A to Z. Meaning that if it was somebody in the middle, you don't do it. So therefore, if you're going to send it al shaliach, you don't have it. So therefore, there's not going to be a problem. So says Elmaleh, and therefore, by buying two different trees, right, or one tree according to the B'mi'id, in order that there shouldn't be a problem with bikurim, you're going to bring the bikurim, but you don't actually come and read the psukim of the bikurim. He says, well, it's just psukim. Liquor, just read psukim. What's the big deal? Why can't Mevi ve'enu kore? You're not going to read psukim. It's psukim in the Torah. Imagine, I'm going to read Devarim. Big deal. I'm reading part of psukim of Devarim. So Elmaleh, he says, Mishum demichse keshikra. It looks like you're coming and you're lying. Says no. If you're going to start reading the psukim, you're going to say 1 second, it's bikurim. If it's bikurim, you don't have to bring turmot u'ma'asrot. So if you're going to take away from turmot u'ma'asrot, and because of that, we don't want you to do such a thing. So we're starting now on the two dots. The two dots, we are 2, 4, 5 lines down where it says higdilu lo yishapeh, which means, right, if right now something is going to grow from the shorashim or from the geza, whether we're talking about the branches or the actual roots, right, he says, right, lo yishapeh. What does it mean, lo yishapeh exactly? He comes and he says anything that's going to happen, it's going to belong to the owner of the field, the property, right? We're talking about that somebody sold the tree, but he kept the land. So therefore, what happens now if something grows on the roots? Who does it belong to? The owner of the karka or the owner of the tree? If something grows from the branches, who does it belong to? The owner of the karka or the owner, right, of the tree, right? That's what we're talking about, okay? One of the two dots, right? Pebet Amud Aleph, right? Gemara is right over there. Yeah, Hechidami. Yeah, the Gemara is going to ask where exactly, right? Where is it the gidul mina geza, the hechidami mina sharashim? What does it mean now from the geza, and what does it mean hashorashim? Okay, so Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol shero'eh penei chama zeu mina geza. Anything that you could see, meaning that you could actually come and you see the which is above ground, which means ro'eh penei chama, it sees the sun, right? That means the sun sees it. So that's considered mina geza. The she'enu ro'eh penei chama is called mina shorashim. Okay, we started something new. Yeah, one more time. Right, we're talking about the something which is growing. There's from the geza mina shorashim. So he says anything which is above ground is called mina geza. Everything which is below ground is called shorashim. Okay, so says the Gemara, which is the roots. He says, why don't we just suspect that all of a sudden what's going to happen is there's going to be a sirton, right, which is basically types of mud and stones and everything because of the water, and therefore what happens is that it's going to become dry, right, and therefore it's actually even higher than what it was. Meaning, once upon a time the land was here. All of a sudden comes stone and earth because the water brought it all up. Now it hires up the ground around the tree. So beforehand, this was considered the what? The geza. Now it's going to be considered the shorashim, because it's covered in the ground. So he says, you sold me 3 different ilanot, and therefore I get the karka as well. Yeah. So he says, Rav Nachman says, Yakotz. The kavanah of the Mishkan, the Mishnah is that where it's going to be olemina geza, it belongs to the Bala Ilan. That's also Rabbi Yochanan says, Yakotz. What does it mean, Yakotz? You're going to cut, right, that which is olemina geza. Rav Nachman says, Nekitina, we also have a Masoret. Dekel en lo geza. Do you know that the dekel has no geza? Okay. So what does that mean, dekel doesn't have? What do you mean? A palm tree doesn't have a geza. What does that mean? Doesn't have a geza. So Savar Rav Zvi lemeimar en lo geza lebala dekel tekivan lemechpar usharesh kai asuch Masechta. Rav Zvi wanted to think that really what we're talking about is that when it says that we don't have the bala dekel, what does that mean? That it doesn't have it. He comes and it says the reasoning is because since anyway the dekel you're going to come and you're going to uproot it when it becomes dry, so therefore it's ki'ilu, right? And therefore you're going to put another one there. It's ki'ilu that there's no geza. It doesn't belong to geza because you're going to uproot the entire tree even from the shorashim, right? Now you should know palm trees have very long shorashim, right? But fine. Okay? So matkifla aser of papa. Vakoneshni ilanot. Right? He says 1 second. But when you buy 2 trees, right? We already learned stam that you're going to come and you're going to uproot it when it becomes dry. And we already learned that you do have a geza. So what's going on? You just told me that there's no geza. There is a geza. And Amar of Papa, but rather Papa says, there's no geza to the baladekel. Why? Because it doesn't come out geza, right? That means basically, right, all the anafim of the dekel, they come from the head, not from the bottom. Meaning the majority of the trees, from the bottom already, they already come out different branches or different things. The palm tree, everything comes from the top. It doesn't come from the bottom. So since it doesn't come from the bottom, that's what he's saying, right? It's a different halakha to do with the dekel. Okay, but according to Rizvid, that he comes and he says, right, that he comes and he says that a dekel is considered an ilan that grows mitzido geza. So Kasha Metzi, you have a question on Mishnah. Why? Because for sure in our Mishnah, we're talking about all the different types of trees. So it comes out that according to Rizvid, even a dekel is part of a tree, which is going to be olemina geza, right? So what's going on? So he says, you sold it for 5 years. So since you sold it for 5 years, right, it's you have the zechut of that if it's going to dry up, you could actually plant another one there. So even if you're going to be masiach dat or whatever it is, you're still able to do it. You're still able to take it out, right? Because again, even if it's going to get dried, there's no problem. You can just take it out, right, and then there won't be a problem whatsoever. 2 dots on the bottom of the page. Kanash losha kana karka. We're talking about if a person buys 3 trees, right, in your friend's field. So even if he didn't say anything, you automatically buy the karka as well. Because whenever you're buying this quantity of trees, automatically means with the karka as well. The kama, how much karka do you get? Okay, we said if you remember there was a machlok between Chachamim and Rabbi Meir, if you bought only 2, or if you bought 1. But okay, you bought 3. You get karka. How much karka? So he says, you buy the karka underneath the tree, ubenehen, between, right, one tree and another one, vechutza lahen, and also outside of the trees. Okay, so you're buying how much? Kimlo ora v'solo, right? Pebet amubet, 82b, right? It says over here the shiur that it's needed for the melaket te'anim, right? So the same thing of the perot of the ilan also, meaning that he has to go with his sal, which is the basket, right, in order to come around and start collecting all the different fruits. Okay, so matkifla Rabbi Lazar, ask Rabbi Lazar, hashta derech enlo. Now you're going to tell me that he doesn't get even a derech to go to the trees, right? So darach riti, you're going to come and you're going to tell me now, was it's a different karka? Or reves salo yeshlo? He says, I don't understand you. If you're going to tell me he doesn't even get a derech to his trees, you remember we said that if a person sells trees, he has to purchase for himself a derech to get to the trees, right? A path to get to the trees. So he comes and he says, right? Why? Because it belongs to another person. So now you're going to tell me he also gets a thing. So actually, if you look in the picture, it looks actually very, very beautiful. You see it. The igula lavan is tachtehen. You see in the bottom of the picture there, right? You got the white circle. You have no picture. Okay, you have a picture on the circle. The white circle, right? Is the white circle is the tachtehen underneath the tree. Okay, the shetach afor, which is a gray area, is between the trees, and the right and the keshet shchora, the outer black area, that's the kimlo aura v'salo. 1 second, right there. Right. So one more time, the white circle underneath, gray is between, and the black, the circle around it, like the arrow, not the around it, the keshet, right? That's going to be the rainbow around it. That's going to be the outside for the collecting of it. So Amar Rav Zvid says Rabbi Zera midivre Rabbeinu, from the words of Rabbeinu nilmad shlosha hu den lo derech. There's dafka 3 trees, right? He's not going to get a derech. Hashnaim yesh lo derech. But if it's going to be 2, he does get the derech. The Elmaleh, because he says bara didach kaime. These ilanot, by the you sold me, are in my karka, right? Sorry, are in your karka. So therefore, if you didn't give me karka, so therefore you are mishabed the karka for their necessities, like just like he's lending it to him. So therefore I have a derech. Meaning, if it's going to be that I own the land, okay, so it's a problem. I bought land in the middle of somebody else's land. So how do I get there? I'm going to have to purchase a path to get there. But if it's be'emet that I don't get any land and everything really be'emet belongs to him, because I only bought 2 trees, so the land belongs to him, So if I could tell him, listen, if you now sold me these two trees and these two trees are in your land, that means your land has to do the necessities for my trees. So if I don't need to buy a path, I don't need to buy a derech. So Amaleh Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Rava, Leimar Rabbi Elazar, let the Shmuel Rabbi. What, Rabbi Elazar doesn't hold of Shmuel as rabbi? Right? He says, why? He says, remember, this was a question of Rabbi Elazar. So he says, the Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, that when a person sells, they always sell with a good eye. Remember, what was the machlok between Rabbi Akiva and Chachamim? Whether you sell with a good eye or bad eye. What happens when you sell with a good eye? You sell with a path. When you sell with a bad eye, you don't sell with a path. So therefore what? He doesn't hold like his Rebbe? What's going on? If he holds like his Rebbe, you should always buy with the path. Meaning you sold the trees, you always sell the path with it. So Elmaleh says, he says, no, our Mishnah cannot go in the Shita of Rabbi Akiva, it can only go according to Chachamim, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan, which is explaining the Mishnah, right? Obviously you can't do that. So Rabbi Elazar is also asking, again, it's all according to Chachamim and not according to, right, Rabbi Akiva. Meaning, one more time, according to Rabbi Akiva, for sure when you sold the trees, you for sure sold the, how do you call it, with it, the path with it. But here we're not going like Rabbi Akiva. You can't say it's Rabbi Akiva. It's going like Chachamim. It's going like Chachamim. So obviously, right, we're talking about the Shita. Okay? Fine. Mimai. Says the Gemara, how do you know that our Mishnah is not going like Rabbi Akiva? So he says, Midiktani higdilu yeshapeh. Because we said, if right now they grew, right? So therefore, what happens is that he's allowed to cut down the branches. V'i salka daitach. Now, if you're going to tell me, Rabbi Akiva, this is Shitat Rabbi Akiva, Ama yishapeh. Why are you going to be mishapeh? Hamar mocher b'ani nefer mocher. Meaning this. What is Rabbi Akiva Shita? Rabbi Akiva Shita is when you sell something, you sell with a good eye. So just like when you sell with a good eye, you're going to sell with a path to get to your trees. So too, when you sell with a good eye, you're selling that right now. If you've got branches that are sticking out of these trees, you sold that as well. Meaning that I'm not going to come and start cutting down your branches and saying it's sticking out into my field. It's salam shos. What's the difference? Meaning if you're already going Shitat Rabbi Akiva, so obviously our Mishnah cannot go like Rabbi Akiva. So if the Mishnah is not going like Rabbi Akiva, so that's why Rabbi Elazar was not explaining like Rabbi Akiva. Fine. Amarle. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak comes and he tells Rava, Imar Damar Rabbi Akiva, we're going to say that according to Rabbi Akiva, is Gabebor Vedut. We're talking about a Bor Vedut. That doesn't make the land soft. Gabeilan, but to do with a tree, Nishamale. Where do we ever hear such a thing? Meaning, the Bor Vedut, you come and you have a pit in my field. It doesn't affect my field. You have water there, that's it. When you have a tree, the roots go and continue growing, and it weakens my field. If I have a house there, it's going to start breaking and trying to smash into the, how do you call this, of the house. You understand? And v'chule v'chule. So he says, yeah, דלא מחשב, אבל גבעילם ישמעלה. מי לא מאוד בברקיבה, בעילן נוטה לתוך שדה חברו, שקוצץ מלוא מרדע מהגבי חדישה. Even according to Rabbi Akiva, you're allowed to come and you're allowed to cut from the tree, which is blocking your plowing. So, for example, whenever you have these roots or whatever it is, you could always come and cut from the milomar dea, which is above the macharisha. So anything which is going to be above where you're going to start plowing, the plowing goes into the ground, correct? When you plow, it comes, it turns over the ground. So when it's going to come and it's going to do that, it's going to go underneath. So even according to Rabbi Akiva that you do say, Ayin yafa mocher, still he could hold, right, the Shitat Rabbi Akiva. So he says now, right? So obviously the reasoning is according to Chachamim, right? That means he's arguing on his Rebbe and he's not going like Rabbi Akiva. He's passing like Chachamim and not like Rabbi Akiva, right? V'tanya kavateder Ruchia bar Abba like Shmuel, basically. Right? Tanya kavateder Ruchia bar Abba. We also learned that according to Ruchia bar Abba, right? In the name of Yochanan, I mean, basically that picture that I showed you before, that you bought the underneath and in between and around it, that's halacha. Okay? So Amaleh Abai Rav Yosef says Abai Rav Yosef. He says, okay, but can you plant something there? Right? Meaning, are you zakai now to come to plant something in that area? Remember, we're talking about the black area around the circle. You have the circle which is underneath the tree. Now you have the area which is surrounding it. Can I come and plant something there? So Elmaleh, he says, we already learned. Which means the balagina, which is on the outside, he's allowed to come and plant the path. Why? Because since it was not Meshuabad, so the balagina on the inner side, it was only just for coming inside and outside. So therefore, he's not going to be mevater on planting. So therefore, the zriya is not me'akev, at least that he's able to walk, because he could just come and just stumble upon it, and there's no problem. Yeah. So two over here. Okay. Fine. Elmaleh. Right. So he comes and he says as follows: Mi dami, are you going to come and you're going to compare both cases? Hatam over there, right? He says, let lepseida lelokeach. He says there's no loss, right, to the lokeach. What does it mean the lokeach? The one that's buying it. Aval hacha over here, lepseida lelokeach. Right, you do have the pseida, right, to the lokeach, to the purchaser. The Elmaleh, because he could say kamitan for pere. You're actually getting my fruits all dirty when they're going to come and they're going to fall on the zanaim. You're getting everything dirty. So therefore, even though to do with the derech, we did find that the Bala Karka he's leaving over the rights that he could come and he could plant it, not to do it over here. Okay? Halo Damya, right? He comes and he says, Halo Damya ela le seifa. So he comes and he says, this is only comparable to the seifa. What's written in the seifa? Right? He says, Veze veze enan rashayin lezor'ah. He comes and he says, the Bala Ginan, the inner one, or not the Bala Ginan, the other one, are allowed to come and they're allowed to plant, right, on the same path. So Tanya Abaye comes and he actually learned, and he says like this. So he said mefurash, they're not allowed to plant. So since they're not allowed to plant, right, that's why he says there's no problem. Nobody could actually plant. So now he comes and he says this. So according to Shitat Abaye, it's written mefurash that you do buy, remember, the karka underneath it, which was the circle, right? You do buy the gray area, which is in between each trees, and also the area which is the black, which is around it, which is in order to collect with a basket, but nobody's allowed to plant that area. So that black area, nobody's allowed to plant it. The kama yeh berein, so how much is going to be in between them? So Rav Yosef Amar Rav Yudah Shmuel ma'arba amot at shmone amot, from 4 to 8 amot. And Rava says the name of Nachman and the name of Shmuel, Mishmone Vachesheseh, from 8 to 16. So Amaleh by Rav Yosef says about Rav Yosef, Lo tiflog alei Rav Nachman. Don't argue on Rav Nachman. The Tanam mitzvit kavatebus we learned on Mishnah. Like accordingly, the Tanam we learned on Mishnah. Noteat karmo 16 amal 16 amal. Somebody's going to plant, right, a kerem, a vineyard, 16 amot squared. Mutal lavi zera l'sham. You're allowed to actually plant in between the gifanim as well. So Amar Rav Yudah says Masechet Salmon. Was a story in this Salmon, in this place. He planted his vineyard 16 amot squared. And he was inclining the branches, right, towards a certain place in between the shurot, in order that each one will become rek. And there he used to plow. And then he used to actually plant in between. In the next year, and then he was coming, he was putting it, there's a zarat abur, which is basically the empty space that was from last year. They actually permitted it. Look at the picture. The picture, he has it over there. You see it? You have Shura Aleph. I will open it up. Yeah? You have Shura Aleph. There's a Revach, which is the Bur 1. Then you have Shura Bet, Revach Bur 2. Shura Gimel, Daled, Hey. There's a picture. Bet Amud Bet 4. Yeah. This is the bur and this is the shura. So each shura and the way that it was inclined. So this is the way that he was doing it. Okay, and they said that they actually permitted this. Okay, fine. So he says, I don't know. Right, there was a story that happened B'dura Dravata, right, in the story of the city of Roim. Right? And they came in front of Yudah, and he said, Zil Havle, go give him Kimlo Bakar Vekelav. Right? The Makom, right, which is basically the Tzemet Bakar that it goes in the plow. But we didn't know Kimlo Bakar, how much is that? So once we learned, right, in the Mishnah, and we said Arba Amot is Kedei Avodat HaKerem, so I'm going to say Kimlo Bakar Vekelav is Arba Amot. And that's what we're going to say until here.